applause for me.
Cool. So thanks a lot for having me tonight. This is a little home play for me. Our office is just down the street. I'm just going to set the timer because I usually run over time. 1 second. It's better. Otherwise, people always point from the side, stop talking. Cool. My name is Tobias. I'm one of the co-founders of a hardware software startup called Senic. We're based here in Berlin, here in Kreuzberg, just down the street. And for tonight, I would like to just get a basic idea of who you are. So I assume everybody's interested in hardware. So who builds hardware? You build hardware, but you're all interested in starting a startup, or what are you guys? Why are you guys here for? Startup, founding. Okay. I hope, because for tonight I thought, okay, if I had to start over again, what are the 10 things I would tell myself? What things would I do differently, and what things would I do exactly the same way we did before? So before I do that, just quickly about us, who we are. So we started the company 5 years ago with a basic observation that our friends, we were hanging out, and it was kind of really annoying that everybody was always on the phone and nobody was really 100% always there, and that really just annoyed us. And we saw this as a development that has just been increasing and increasing. And today we're basically spending more than a third of our day in front of screens, and the current generation is checking their phones over 100 times a day, and we just think that's a wrong approach. We think people should not be basically there to follow technology, but technology should be there to support us. And we call this as compared to what people call a virtual reality, where people live in a virtual world, we call this an enriched reality, a reality where the reality around us, objects and surfaces, are enriched with technology that supports us from the background without distracting. So we basically build smart home devices for people who really care about quality and a human-centered design approach. And this is the first product we built, and I can hand it over. And a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are basically out of the experience from building this device. So this is called Nuimo, and it's a really simple control for your music and lighting. So instead of pulling out your smartphone and going through a lot of steps, or sitting with a friend and you can't really use voice, this is a really simple haptic interface. But we're really looking at all different forms of interaction. So we don't only look at haptics, we're also looking at sensors and passive interfaces as well. Of course, we didn't build this in one day. It was actually a long journey. It took 2 years to build this. We made a lot of mistakes. We luckily, without knowing, did a lot of things right as well. And we went from really early Arduino prototypes. That's how it basically starts. I'll just give around the 2 pieces. This, I think, was one of our first prototypes based on a Arduino Micro, I think. Yeah, until we actually got to the final device. It took a long time. We actually manufactured everything in Germany, and this is also one of the learnings why it's actually might be worth it to do it here, and actually not more expensive than in China. We went through a lot of steps, from a basic prototype to design for manufacturing, try to find the right suppliers here in Germany, and then started shipping the devices, won a bunch of technology and design awards, and now we're working on more and more products. We're 25 people, have different forms of investment from Europe and the US. And that's where we are today. So what are the 10 things? So the first thing, basically when you start off, you should really make sure that you know who you're gonna marry. Because the person next to you, or the 2-3 other people that you're next to, you're basically gonna be married to them, and you're gonna live very closely to them. And you want to make sure, especially in really bad times, that you don't kill each other, and that you can actually go through those things. And this is one of the things. We also had 1 or 2 people in the beginning that it's really normal. Hey, I'm gonna join the startup and I'm gonna keep this consulting job on the side and I'll see how it goes, and at some point I'm gonna transition. So that's all bullshit. So make sure if you get the right person on board that everybody's 100% committed. This is really important, and try to at least spend some time with that person. Let's say half a year of just doing something together, working on a project or doing something. This is super, super crucial. And typically whenever startups, especially in the early days, break apart, it's a lot of times because the co-founders didn't get along, and a lot of times they didn't know each other before. Of course, that's not always easy, but really try to spend time with the people you're actually going to marry. So the second one, which I didn't know much about, just some basics about cost and time and pricing. So it's gonna take a long time to build hardware. It's gonna be a dry phase of just development, talking to a lot of your customers, and just I think in the beginning assumed it would take a year, and I think it took 2 years to actually get the product out. So it took a year longer than we actually expected, and you're gonna see that all the time with so many hardware startups I've talked to. It's completely normal, and you're gonna be wrong at the beginning, but just talk to a few other hardware startups, trying to understand what the process is of building hardware and how long it's gonna take, because the decision you're gonna make are based on the estimations and the assumptions you have. The next thing is cost. Hardware is crazy expensive. You're gonna pay a lot for prototypes, you're gonna pay for, you typically, compared to a software startup, you need a lot more people. You need, if you have electronics, electrical engineer, firmware, mechanical, we had industrial design, so we had a bunch of people, and this is really, really expensive. So just be aware of this. Knowing how much things cost is gonna lead you to making completely different decisions. And the last, or two last pieces of advice is on selling your product, the price you pick. So pricing in the eyes of customers is really relative. So for our product, which is a control for music and lighting, people always referred to something similar, like an iPad on a wall. So they were like, okay, an iPad costs that much, how much do I pay for that? Or they thought about an alternative control, they thought about a device that works with this. So I pay 200 euros for my Sonos, and this is a product that works with it, so it should cost 25% of that. So pricing is always relative. So actually designing your price to put it in the right reference of mind is really important. And we also have one investor from Apple, and he was saying that they actually have the same challenge with the HomePod, for example, because it's an amazing speaker that they built, but now that they've put speech into it, people automatically just think of the Amazon Dot, which costs $40. So it actually, adding this feature actually almost diminishes the value of the product. So think really, really hard of what reference people use. And also about pricing, just make sure that you have the margins that you need. So basically, whatever your cost of goods are, try to have at least 3 in the beginning, 4 times the margin, so you can actually work with distributors and resellers. And really try to hit the right price and the right margins, because otherwise it's going to be really, really hard for you to sell. Next one, so listen hard and listen a lot. Just basically, those 2 things are the things you should be doing. You build hardware and you talk to users, and that's basically almost all you do. Really spend a lot of time. This is one thing, because we really have a design-driven approach. We did a lot, and this is not only crucial because it helps you to build the right things. And remember, hardware is super expensive, and you want to make sure that you build the right things. But you actually, your community, your early backers, the people you talk to, they're also your most loyal customers, and they really want to support you with your mission, and they really want to see you succeed. So spend a lot of time with your customers, especially in the early days. It's really, really worth it. Next one, one of our employees coined this term. It's called sharpen the axe. Sometimes or frequently, it's really worth to slow down to speed up. Take a break, sharpen your axe before you actually hit that thing on the wood. So for example, a lot of times we were like, okay, we got to build this and rush over there without actually having like a proper development process in which you de-risk certain parts in your development. And I can also share the development process that we have, but actually having a little bit of process and having a little bit of think about certain things, spending more time on those things that actually don't contribute directly to the development of your product is sometimes actually worth it. So you can, once you've prepped all the stuff, you can really keep running. Because with hardware, one of the things that we also had, as soon as you make one mistake on the mechanics or somewhere else, it basically sets you up at least 6 months all the time. And we've had friends of ours who made a little mistake in their design and they had to pull back products off the market, which is usually kills companies. They survived it, but it's really, really hard. So think about this all the time, not only about product development, but also how to organize your team, communication. Sometimes just slow down to speed up again. Start fucking simple. This is super, super crucial. So our controller looks really, really simple, but it's quite a complex device. We have a lot of mechanics. We have a ball bearing. We have a optical sensor that measures the rotation around it. So we have a lot of complex things in there. But a lot of times, people don't really care about all that complexity that you put in. They're really happy when you just solve their problem. So we could have built something a lot simpler, would have spent a lot less money, would have been faster, and we would have gone just as fast, just as far, or even further. So especially in the beginning, just try to build something really simple and then move on. There's a lot of startups that actually did this really great. I think Uno is also going to talk about this, not just building a crazy scooter from the beginning, but just using a lot of stuff that's off the shelf as well, and that's the right approach. If I did it again, I would probably not even start off with like an electrical and a software product, but just something simple, make money with this, and then keep going. Of course, this is a personal approach, but this is what I would do next time. Just do something simple and build on top of that and do the learnings. Actually, one more part about this. Also, just make sure that what you're building, the small thing, is just something that people really like. So just make sure the small thing that you do is really, really important. And we see this all the time with our product. It's about less features and just doing the few things that it does really, really great. And that's why I'm a big advocate of actually looking into local manufacturing as well, because especially in Germany, we have a very special situation. We have manufacturing capabilities that not many other countries have. I've had a bunch of other startups also getting quotes in China and Germany, and it's the same pricing. So a lot of times it's not actually more expensive. China is good for certain things, but a lot of times it makes sense to do it here. And especially in Germany, we have very unique advantages. Americans manufacturing in the US, for example, can't do it the way we can in Germany, also at the price point. So be aware that Germany is a very unique case when it comes to this. Investment for hardware. Yeah, right. Everybody needs money, especially for hardware. It's super, super expensive. It's really hard, especially in Germany. Hardware investments are still quite toxic. We have one VC from Germany. Target Partners is one of the few VCs, well, one of three basically, who does hardware investments. They're also invested in Tado, this thermostat, and they really focus on technology. A lot of the investments we have, especially in Berlin, is focused on a lot of e-commerce. And we don't really have this in Germany yet. On the other hand, one other German investor that we have is actually a German Mittelstand company, quite a big from the light switch industry. And this is also an untapped investment market, especially in Germany, I think, which we should be using because we have all these hidden huge champions, which are market leaders that have a lot of capital, and they're actually trying to invest it. They all call it digitalization, digital transformation. They're looking for ways of investing money, and it's not being tapped. They don't know how to do it yet. Everybody's trying to find their ways, and we're also trying to share just our experience on how this could be done, that it not only works for the corporate, but also for a startup. So this is an untapped. Otherwise, what we basically had to do, what I still have to advise at this point, is we started with a US-based corp and have a German GmbH as a daughter, so we can accept American investments and Asian investments. That's where a lot of the hardware investments are still happening. Apart from that, you're always going to get the question, what's your recurring business model? So if you have one, just start thinking about it from the beginning. Is there a software business model or other hardware pieces that you can sell on a recurring basis? This is just something that is like a magical signal. And apart from that, just try to traction beats everything. So if you have money from a simpler product, or if you have certain customers, people will invest in you because you have the traction. And if you have money from another product, you're also more independent. So as a hardware startup, I think focusing on cash is more important than a software startup. So having this independency actually really, really helps. All right, next one, you probably also all know these kind of stores that just sell everything, kebab and pizza, and you're just really, really confused on what's going on, and you don't trust that the quality is right. This is something that we learned, and this is a continuous process. Just be clear about who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. We do this a lot in our blogs, and people really know for Senic, it's not about product, it's about people. It's about not putting technology first, but people first, and how our approach is, what we care about, and that's what people remember. There's so much going on out there, and people can't really remember much. There's like 1 or 2 messages, so make sure that you focus on the 1 or 2 things that you're doing right. We also had mixed messaging in the beginning because we didn't quite know what our core essence of the company were, and we could see that. And the more we clarified it and talked to our users what they cared most about us, the easier it became. So make sure that you have a clear message of who you are in the world. Next one, the number is wrong, but I have also learned this the hard way. So there is a return on investment on your health. I would say probably 1.5, I would say even up to that. So in the beginning, we were just like working super hard, not caring about our health, relationships or any other things, and this is actually super harmful in the long term. You can do this short term, and there will be sprints where you just don't care and just go really, really hard, but hardware takes such a long time, and you have these long periods of drought of just building on your product where you're not selling. Or so make sure that you put emphasis on your health. And there are a couple of basic ones. So sleep. 95% of all humanity requires 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So if somebody tells you they're just sleeping 5 hours a night, they're either the lucky, unique ones, or they're full of bullshit. So make sure you get sleep. It's actually one of the core things. The next one is eating. That's just super, super hard for everyone. I can't believe why it's so hard to just eat healthy every day, but it is. And then also moving, not even just doing sports, but it has been shown that those 3 things, sleeping, eating right, and just moving a lot, are the core contributors to your personal health. So just make sure that. Apart from that, one easy thing you can do is just getting light. So light is really important, and especially in the winter days, there's a lot of like LED lights that you can get. It's such a low-hanging fruit. Just do those core things, and you're taking care of this. There's really a big ROI on this. The almost the last point that I like to call, you need to suffer from conviction. So hardware, again, is such a long ride, and it takes so long, and it's so hard. There will be so many hard times. You need to basically suffer from believing what you're building. You need to really believe that what you're doing is worth doing, all that hardship. Don't do it for money. With hardware, I've never seen a company that succeeded just because they were in for the money. Have a clear understanding of what you want to change in the world, and you really need to have almost the feeling that you're suffering of not doing it. So have the strong belief. Ask yourself why you're doing this all the time. Just asking the question why you do what you do is super, super important just to keep going. And I remember, at some point, I think on average, every successful startup that succeeded almost died twice in the history on average. A lot of them, I think hardware startups, probably even more. And there were a lot of like really, really hard times where we barely had any money left. And I remember one email from one of our partners at YC saying that, hey, it looks like you're surviving somehow. Just keep doing that. Statistically, companies that survive long enough typically become really successful. And that's really true. Like in order to become successful and survive, just don't die. And not to die, you really need a lot of conviction. And the last thing that I think that's one of the things that we're strongest in is our culture. So culture is king. A startup, all it is basically a bunch of people in a room. So making sure that you can attract the right people, that you have the right space for them, that you care about what their problems are, what they really care about is just so important. So we make this a commitment, as a core commitment in our company, to continuously improve the culture, and you can really see this. All the people who are there, they're there because they love Senic. And that's what we really care about, and what I can, especially in the early days, you don't care about that much, but starting early, thinking about this, reading about this is super, super worth it, because those things are easier to implement in the beginning, and it becomes harder and harder and more important over time. So yeah, that was all from my side. One thing, so we started a little initiative called GermanHardwareStartups.com. All it is a newsletter. If you're interested in hardware, you have to sign up here. So you can also share information there. If you're looking for a startup, looking for co-founders, looking for anything, just send it to us and we share it in the newsletter. We have basically all startups, hardware startups in Berlin. We have a lot of big hardware companies. So it's really easy to do. All it is a newsletter. So please sign up. And if you have any questions to me about Senic, local manufacturing, design, how to raise money or anything, please feel free to reach out to me. We're also always hiring. So if you want to join Senic, please send me an email. Thanks a lot for your attention.
First of all, congrats on doing a hardware startup in Germany and raising money for it.
Yeah, thanks.
It's obviously a big deal.
Yeah.
When did you guys start raising? Where were you in your, I guess, in your route?
Yeah, so for us, a lot of times, and it's a recommendation, you raise money in just a certain period of time when you're not trying to do anything. It was not for us that way, especially for hardware startups, there's still a lot of reluctance, so it was quite a rolling process, all of this. So we started off with an incubator in the US called YCombinator. That's where we got our first money. After that, we got a few angels on board. That was actually really hard. Again, coming back to the ROI on health, I remember days, this is so stressful that I would just have one meeting a day, come home and just fall into bed, and I would just be, basically done for the day. It's really, really hard, so take it easy. And from there, we shipped the product. People really liked it. They use it every day. Then we got first we got Birchmere Ventures on board from the US. Which was, I think, 2.5 years ago. Then we got Target Partners on board in Germany. That was like a year and a half ago. And then we got also Gira, this big light switch maker, on board just a couple of months ago. So everything was really like a rolling process throughout the years for us.
Hey, thanks for that. I'm just wondering, you mentioned about some items are much easier to manufacture, cheaper to manufacture in Germany. Can you actually give some specific examples of things that you can find are easier to?
Yeah, I mean, one typical example that I like to use, which is not directly related, but it gives you an idea of why Germany is the way it is. Printing was invented in Germany, and there's so many like print shops, you never realize so much printing in Germany, like business cards. It's like the cheapest anything print in Germany is so cheap. Or in Germany, we have a really high level of automation. So anything that's happening on automated machines is also typically totally worth it in Germany, where not a lot of assembly is involved. I talked to a big, large company in Germany, and what they do all injection molding, everything here in Germany, then they pack everything into shipping containers, send it to Asia for assembly, and then send it back. So it really still tells you where kind of the savings are. But something like wherever there's automation involved and machining, by now, it's really worth looking into just Germany, because you save a lot of hassle. There's other things, especially when you go like really, really hard scale and try to optimize margins a little bit, etc. It's worth it, but just the time difference, and you have to really be there, and there's so much involved into that. It's really worth, especially in Germany, looking at Germany.
Thank you.
Maybe one last question? Yeah.
I was wondering if what you said apply even to B2B, let's say, because your case is more about consumers, no?
Yes. a lot of the things that I've been talking about is specifically for our case in consumer. B2B, of course, is different. For example, pricing, it's less price relevant, but you need to think about a lot of other things. How do you make that person who becomes your representative in the company, because there will be a person in the company who basically tries to pitch you in front of all these other people. How do you make that person look successful, for example? This is something you have to think about all the time. But I'm not the expert on this level. Of course, it's different. So a lot of the things I've been talking about are applicable to consumer space.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, there'll be time at the end. I don't know if you'll be hanging around, but
sure.
yeah, thanks a lot, Tobias.
Thank you.
Que la famille.